All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another episode of the Fighting Pit podcast. I believe we are on episode 36, it looks like, and this is a very special episode for a lot of reasons, actually, but probably the most notable reason is that this is our 1 year anniversary. So by the time this will be coming out, the Saturday, that will be, I guess we used to release on Friday, but basically it's been a year since we first started this podcast around Mercenaries, back when Tankster was with us on the show, and it's just been a heck of a ride. So we do have some stuff to catch up on. We have a lot of things to say about the recent update, as this is our first time talking about Renown and trade offers and all the stuff that came in the 0.6 patch, as well as the new Mercenary. So that's going to be a big portion of the show. And then another big portion is we're going to be kind of taking a trip down memory lane, kind of reliving and talking about our favorite moments that we have had with the show. Because, I mean, it's been a year, so what better time to kind of look back and see all the good times we had and talk about what our favorite moments were. Quick, I guess, announcement. Might as well just rip the Band-Aid off at the start here. This is going to serve as our conclusion to the first season of the Fighting Pit podcast. I'm sure we'll talk more about reasoning and all that stuff throughout the episode, but basically, for the time being, this is going to be our final episode, and we're leaving the door open in the future for a potential season 2. Maybe Blizzard makes the changes they need to make to the mode to, grow the player base, bring people back. Maybe the PvE endgame is a big success. Who knows what the future holds? But at least right now, with the current outlook with the game, with the stuff we've seen and the stuff we're going to talk about today, it feels like this is kind of the perfect time to do kind of a bittersweet send-off to the end of our first season of this show, which has been just a ton of fun to make. And I'm excited to talk all about it. So I know that's a lot to load into the intro here. But how are you guys doing this week? What are you feeling like?
Feeling all kinds of stuff for sure. It's been like physically pouring one out as we speak for the Fighting Pit podcast. It's been super duper fun. This entire year has just been a blast. To even just be a part of kind of a type of project like this has been really awesome. To really kind of be, we've talked about it so many times, of like the kind of historical kind of snapshotting of all of these events over time, and just like catching things in that full complete flow of information. It was just, it was exciting. It was sweet to be on the top of the wave like that. But this patch, truly, again, we're going to talk about it, but things needed to be different, and we're feeling a lot of conflicted feelings about all kinds of stuff, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, same thing as Mullahoo was saying. I mean, it's great to be a part of this project, and went for about a year on this, and or a little bit over, going through everything and seeing how the Mercenaries mode literally started from beginning to where we are now. But yeah, we'll kind of get into more of our thoughts on everything that's happened so far in the year.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So obviously we're gonna focus first half here on just the new stuff we got, our feelings about it. I have been very outspoken about it on Discord, on Twitter, which also may be being sunset, it's looking like, but we won't dive too much into that topic. They're just like, it's just really rough, because, when I decided I wanted to start this project, the whole reason for it was I saw this potential in Mercenaries that it could really be this huge thing, and I thought the groundwork was there. It was just clearly rushed out the door, and they needed to take some proper steps to address community issues, make it more accessible, and they could have a real winning game on their hands that I legitimately believed could have been the biggest mode in Hearthstone if they had done things a bit differently. Now, we tried to be pretty patient, and I was very committed to just being like, all right, this is taking a while. It's taken a while, but surely from what they're saying, they understand they need to get this stuff right. So if it takes longer in order for them to get it right, well, I'm okay with that. And unfortunately, we see our first big payoff of all this waiting, and it's not what it should have been. And I mean, not everybody feels that way. I did a poll actually over on YouTube, and it was interesting to see how differently people felt about it. I'm gonna pull it up here just to see. A lot of people voted, so that was nice. It was because I wanted to, I had my initial reaction, and then I was just like, I'm gonna sleep on it. Maybe I'll feel differently in the morning. Give it like a day or whatever. And so here there were 444 votes. And the options were, I'm happy with the patch, I'm neutral towards the patch, I'm unhappy, and no opinion / results. 25% were happy with the patch, 29% were neutral towards the patch, and 34% were unhappy with the patch, and 12% no opinion / results. So it was kind of split up into like almost equal thirds. Like people were leaning more towards neutral and unhappy, but there still were a decent amount of people who were happy with the patch. And I definitely don't want to discount those people, because like I think it's totally valid to have different opinions about this. And honestly, my feelings toward the mode, and I definitely want to make like a big point out of this, it's not just the patch that the contents of the patch that made me feel that. It's a combination of things. And it's more about what the patch represents to me rather than the actual content of the patch. Even though the content is certainly a part of it, I think it speaks to a general philosophy for the mode that I don't think is the right way to handle it, and I don't think it's going to result in growth, which is very key, not only in the content creation scene, but if you want a thriving game, it has to grow. You can't. No game that is online multiplayer is happy when their player base is stagnant or decreasing. And I mean, how many people I'm sure none of us can even think about how many people we know who have left the game over the year. We've had a number of great guests on this show, and I don't know if any of them, I think the only guest we've had on the show who's still playing Mercenaries, and a big shout out to him, is Grumpy, our friend from Germany, who's still going hard on the content creation for the mode. And
which is cool, because Europe also had always had the highest numbers for Mercenaries when you really looked at it.
Yeah, so it's great to see him still going, and definitely check out his stuff. I think him and Crimson Panda are two people I really want to shout out because they put in the work. And I know just how difficult that can be as someone trying to do this full time. It's very challenging. The mode is very demanding for you to be able to put out consistent content. And I know the community really appreciates it. That's why I had a kind of a hard time making the decisions I had to make, was because, you get this feeling of you don't want to let the community down. You don't want to kind of let yourself down with this project you've put all this time and effort into. But at a certain point, you have to kind of to wake up and smell the roses of the situation. At least that's kind of how I feel about it. But I think we can just dive on in. Let's talk about the contents of the patch. It's not all bad. There is some good stuff in here. But yeah, big points. We got the renown system. We went over the renown system in the last episode. We didn't have all the information, but we had that little screenshot where we saw the trade offers and did some speculating. And I guess we'll just rip the Band-Aid off for the big issue I find with the renown system. One, the rates aren't good. Even for players who have a lot of it, the rates are not great. The conversion itself to renown isn't actually terrible, but the problem is you're converting twice. You're basically converting into renown, and then the renown has a different conversion rate into coins. And I think that's where they really screwed up with that in one way. And they could always change that, because you could just change how much renowned is worth without have to actually changing, what you convert the extra coins into renown. You just change, hey, your renown is worth more. But the big problem I see with this is they did what we were saying they couldn't afford to do for forever. You can't base a system like this around the people like me who have hundreds of thousands of coins, because then it's almost useless to about everyone else. We don't know what the other use for the renown is going to be outside of it being tied into the PvE endgame, so people don't know, hey, I only have 2,000 renown, and I'm not getting a ton of coins from this. Should I just save it? Should I use it? I don't really know. And it's hard to answer that question because we don't really know what the use for it is, but so many people are in that boat of, I really didn't, even dedicated players are like, I really don't have a whole ton of renown. And
it honestly split up into the cleanest division amongst the three of us. I forget if we had talked. Did we talk about this last time? Like how the renown conversion split up. Essentially, in terms of exactly what you're talking about. I just want to mention it, that Zombies basically had, if he converted all of his renown into legendary tokens or legendary coins, essentially, he could make 4 to 5 legendary characters straight from zero.
Yeah. So that'd obviously be more if, I do my task and stuff, but if we're just doing straight conversion,
if you just could flip it all, that's the worst part essentially as well, right? Is that you can't even do it all right away. And even if you could, Zombies could full cash and get 4 to 5 characters. That's it. 4 to 5 legendaries. To even remotely think about comparing that to things like Standard, and then WizardBeast got essentially the range of exactly 2 to 3 legendaries, and I got about 0 to 1. Just perfectly nailing the spectrum of the average player base in terms of how many games you were playing or how many extra coins you had, or starting from the beginning. The full spectrum, the most you could get is 4 or 5 legendaries, even if it worked the way we wanted it to, and it doesn't. And so the cogs smashed against each other.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing, just like the rate wise too, and how you guys were also mentioning earlier about, it's gonna be used for the PvE system of how much to save. I've been logging in just daily so far and just turning in basically my coins and just doing those new dailies, just logging in, turning it in. But yeah, it's barely any coins. Sometimes I do it and I'm like, oh, I didn't even get enough coins for an upgrade. So it's just well, gotta hope I get it for another day because I haven't been playing it as much recently. So, but I'm capping myself off at, I'm only going to go down to 50,000 renown left, and I'm going to hold it there and not do those anymore until I know about the PvE system and how much. Because I figure, might want to jump back into it more when that comes out for sure. But hey, how much is actually needed for that?
Yeah,
if
exactly.
these rates are already so high right now, might expect the rates to be super high when that comes out.
Yeah, and the other big thing that is a huge miss. So we talked about this, and I've seen some people say well, you never could have expected them to let you full convert. And honestly, I didn't. I'll just throw that out there. I never expected them to let people like me who have an absurd amount of this currency just be able to new mercenaries, fully maxed. Now, in an ideal world, that would be awesome. But I never expected Blizzard to do that. It's not a smart move financially from them. It really only benefits a very small percent of players, and those are probably your invested players who you want to be spending. But that aside, the big thing I wanted out of this update was I wanted it to be a bridge to bring people back, bring new players in, and since day one, the big issue has been extra coins, and the fact that the new players or returning players really aren't going to get much from their extra coins, even if they played a lot at launch, and that's quite sad. That's kind of the opposite. And so the big problem is not only are they screwing the new people and the returning people, at the same time they found a way to screw the long-term people too. So let's get into why that's the case. When we looked at the original image, we saw there were 2 trade offers. And we were like, okay, well, this might mean that you only get 2 offers a day. And the offers we saw were actually larger than some of the offers you see in game. You can see as low as like 75 coins for an offer.
I've gotten a 50.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
So it's
wow.
yeah. I one day I logged in and got double 50, and I was like, oh, okay.
That just screams to me like, okay, pick numbers that might make sense, and we'll just rip it in there. Like, not even thinking about the fact that 50 is just such a comical number for this type of system.
I know. I'm like thinking, hey, if that's there, is there a 25 that's for everyone out there?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, the 0 is the high roll, dude. You just wait until you get the 0. You're popping off.
It just shows it just says their line, and then the quest completes.
Yeah, you get an achievement, but
Yep.
So we predicted this, right? Like, we kind of predicted that they were going to time gate the system. We thought it was very likely, and it turns out that is what they did. But the crazy thing is, when we kind of made our predictions after seeing the first image, we were like, okay, well, at least they're giving you 2 a day. That might be reasonable. It gives you a reason to log in, and that's always a good thing for the game because that gets people logging in and playing every day. It's good for population numbers. But the thing is, you're not guaranteed trade offers. And this is something I found out the hard way, being someone who is almost fully maxed. I haven't maxed out Rattlegore yet, but I was thinking, this system isn't the greatest, but hey, at least it'll help me max out this character a little bit faster. It's better than nothing, right? Well, I went about a week without ever seeing a trade offer, and I refreshed, they cleared them out every day. I finally have gotten I think 2 or 3 total over it's been almost a month. It's been like 3 weeks or so, I think. And that's not logging in every day because after that first week I was incredibly discouraged. But I did log in once in a while, and you do have to clear them out, either abandon them or complete them to get new ones. But I was doing that, and I did it for just over a week before I got my first Rattlegore offer.
That's insane.
So I could see this renown, about 136,000 renown, a number I have to look at every time I open the campfire, and I just can't do anything with it. And when I finally am able to do something with it, I throw a little bit to get, 75 Rattlegore coins or something. And it's just like, wow. Maybe if it was guaranteed. Now, I know if you aren't like me and you have a lot of unmaxed mercenaries, it sounds like you do still see trade offers more often. But eventually, you're going to run into the problem that I've run into. Yeah, I mean, I guess when new mercs drop, it'll be a little bit better. But when they're only dropping 1, and you have mostly a max collection, whether it's through an event or whether it's through a battle pass or whatever, when they're dropping 1, your odds of getting a trade offer for it are really, really low. And I had other people experience that too. And it's just like, so not only did you time gate it, I'm not even guaranteed a trade offer a day. Like, they found a way to screw the hardcore people while also screwing the new / returning people. It's like, who is this for? I can't really figure that out. Like, I know some people have liked it, but I just don't understand who they're trying to appeal towards with this. It doesn't make sense to me.
What it feels to me is it literally is just saving you 1-1-1 runs. It literally feels like that's all they did. It's like, hey, you don't have to do as many 1-1 runs when you do all of your tasks. You have that done, and you might run like 20 of them or something. It's like, hey, no, log in for the day, we'll save you 10 runs. Log in for another day later on. In 2 weeks, we'll save you another 10 runs.
Yeah,
I feel like that's literally what the change is.
It's
just
nice, but it's just
much.
not
It
good
becomes
enough.
maxing the least fun part of the game as the only option you have. That's just such a not fun option.
And I do want to
Nothing
mention,
attractive
since
about
you
that.
brought up 1-1, that there's more to this change. So touch on the positive a little bit here. They did change tasks entirely. The task change is really, really good. Now, basically, whatever mercs you have in your party, their tasks are active. You can view all the tasks. Mysterious Stranger is no more. And that actually had some interesting repercussions because, speaking of 1-1, the king has been dethroned. And now, actually, I think Heroic 1-2 is the new king because by removing Mysterious Stranger, they added bonus loot in his place. So now you can actually get bonus loot in Heroic 1-2. And so it is technically, I think, the fastest way to farm individual coins in Mercenaries. Now they finally, a
New
year and
year.
change later,
After a
Yeah.
year,
yeah, they brought back Air
one by
Elemental.
one.
They finally brought it back, which is kind of funny for our launch players who remember how Air Elemental was the spot. But that's kind of funny. The task change is a great change. That was like
Mhm.
probably the best thing they added in this update. It gives players agency to farm whatever they want, level up mercenaries, progress mercenaries that they have, removes just gambling on your campfire having tasks you want. The other neat thing is they did add these daily quest things where you can get coins for it rolls a random character and it'll have party includes. You go do a specific bounty with those specific characters and you get coins for them. So that's nice. Honestly, I think that's something they should have had towards the start. Gives people a bit of direction. I think the big miss here, though, is, and they could have fixed this so easily. They added a tab, right? They added a tab to where we can see, all the quests and now the tasks, and now these daily ones are their own tab, right?
Mhm.
They could have fixed this almost entirely if they gave one tab for these daily quests and then a dedicated tab to trade offers, where instead of having maybe at most 2 a day, you could have 4 or you could have 6 or whatever. Give more trade offers so there's a higher chance of getting what you want, and have it be its own tab so you're guaranteed trade offers every day. You can still time gate it, you can still prevent people from insta-maxing mercenaries, but this would solve a huge part of my issue with the system. And I think the conversion rates should still be adjusted, but that would honestly fix a lot of the complaints I had with the system. It would give you more daily tasks to do, which is good. Also, seen some confusion about the dailies. So there's a little picture of the mercenary, and then it says party includes. You have to not only have the party includes that it mentions, but also the mercenary in the picture. And it's just a classic mercenaries blunder of just making something not very clear that they should have explained better. But minor thing there. But I think if they just did that, if they gave us our own trade offer page or our own little trade offer area in the campgrounds, I think it would have fixed a lot of the issues. Because you wouldn't have spots competing. Like I wouldn't run into the issue of, oh, well, I'm only missing 1 or 2 max mercenaries and I'm just not getting offers. There would be a Rattlegore offer. Now, it probably would not get me there that much faster, but anything kind of helps. Because otherwise the excess coins were useless. And so I think if they just made that change, it would have completely changed the narrative around the perception of how this really missed the mark. And the other thing is the timing. So, we talked about on the show multiple times, this is taking a really long time. It's taking a really long time. And they kind of addressed it. They were like, we know this is important. We know this is what everyone wants. It's coming. We promise. And they even emphasized, we're taking our time with it to make sure we get this right. And it's like, we waited a year for this. Like, if they gave us this 6 months ago, I think people would have been a lot more receptive. But the longer you have to wait for features like this that have been desired since the game came out, the higher people's expectations are going to be. And their messaging, I don't think, really helped with that either. So it's like, you can't have it take this long, and then we said it multiple times, you can't have it miss on launch. This is not, you can't redo Merc's launch here where this is going to be the big thing to bring people back, and then you stumble and you mess it up. Because people aren't that forgiving, and this just doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, overall, just the exchange part, I don't think was that good for the patch. And I mean, besides that, though, the task change that they did is a great change. That it's great for just grinding through things now, not having to look and finally be like, oh, I need to get this task, and
Yeah.
then because even still, if you're looking for a certain person, even though now that they had the rolling task, you had to still find a mysterious stranger sometimes if you didn't get him at the campfire. Where this, at least now, is just, you can do anyone, anytime, and even up to 6 now. Overall, that's a great change. And I think, my guess for like how you were talking about the poll earlier is a lot of people probably said it better. I'm guessing because of that part of the patch, because it was the overall patch. I would guess that a lot of people were happy with that. But yeah, the coin exchange, they got down the system, but they needed to just alter it a little bit, and I think it could have been a lot better. Like you said, adding another page. If they made it where there was, say, even just 4 a day, and then say for the conversion rate, what if there wasn't the second rate? Just whatever you converted your coins to that currency, and then it was 1 for 1 with that currency for coins. I feel like it would feel a lot better.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, that was just a miss on that part. But another thing too, which not too many people were talking about though, is we didn't get any balance changes at all, which
Oh yeah.
normally we
Yep.
always
Yep.
do. We didn't get a single balance change either this patch, which I was surprised at, because normally we get a decent amount.
Usually
It's
get
not as big
buffs.
as the other
Yeah.
ones, but yeah, buffs, some spell or equipment changes and everything, but
Yeah.
there was
Nothing.
nothing.
Whole lot
So
of
yeah, that was
nothing
another
this one.
surprise.
Yeah, that definitely felt like a miss. It kind of added some insult to injury, right? Because usually 0.6 or when we get that kind of stuff, because they don't usually balance change stuff in the 0.4 because they want to see how the new drop does, how it changes things. Pretty understandable. 0.6 they've traditionally done some good stuff, and also really worth bringing up here. I can't emphasize enough how like gargantuanly stupid the balance philosophy of always buff never nerf is. I think that is like some like I don't really have a nice way to say this. It's like some actual clown shit in a multiplayer game when you think only buff never nerf. Like uh, whoever philosophy that was, like I'm sorry, you do not know how to design like a multiplayer PvP game. Like it just there's always gonna, I don't care how perfect you try and balance stuff, there's always going to be something that is outside the curve, and you sometimes need to make adjustments to that. And in the beginning I thought there was a bit of hope with seeing the Varden rework and some of the other things they kind of snuck in as quote unquote bug fixes, but as time's gone on, it's just like Valera is back, even with all these new counters, even with all this stuff. Valera is kind of almost the best she's ever been. And it's like we've talked about this a year ago. Valera's going to be a problem for the long-term health of the game. Now, she's not the only problem, but it's crazy. Even after all these counters and changes and stuff, all it takes is a few new mercs to break her, and the same problems kind of are happening again and again. It's like you can't just buff her out of existence. It doesn't work, because then even if you do succeed, you're creating a new problem. It's like it's just power creep in a different way. And
Yeah.
I don't understand how they thought that was a sustainable philosophy. I've long held the belief that it's not sustainable, and that eventually they're going to have to bite the bullet and change their mind about it. And I still think that's the case. I just don't know if they're ever going to make that decision. It just doesn't seem very likely to me at this point. Either they are stubborn and they think their way is the right way, or they lack the resources to do it. And unfortunately, it doesn't really matter as a player base what the reason is. If it's not happening, it's not happening. And that's been a big part of what has contributed to my desire to really not play the game as much. Is it feels like, and you see this reflected in the numbers too, pushing out content for the mode. This launch, in spite of being the last big Merc Strap, I think was one of the best we've ever had, if not the best, with the most interesting set of characters. It's severely underperformed compared to the initial big Mercenaries drop. And you would think with more interesting and dynamic characters, with more depth, that it would be doing better, but it wasn't doing better. It was doing worse. And also we have more polarization now too, with some of these new characters, and combos have made things a lot more polarized. Mercenaries has had problems with polarization in the past, where it feels like you're kind of, some matchups are so lopsided. It's like the old classic Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage, where it's like a 90-10 win to lose, and it doesn't feel like you're playing the game at that point. The game you're playing is, did I queue up the right deck? And that's just not fun. That's not why we play the game. We like the interesting dynamic decisions you could make during a game and change the outcome, feeling like your decisions matter. And the polarization is kind of the complete opposite of that, which is really not good. And you see that impacting PvP health overall. Obviously, the balancing stuff matters way less in PvE, and never really been concerned about that. But the problem is because the mode is so intertwined the way it is, I think a huge reason why they refuse to nerf cards is because they don't want to change it for PvE players. And it's unfortunate that they can't find a way to kind of make it work for both groups, but PvP continues to suffer from that. And the big thing I really want to drive home here, and the biggest thing, aside from, the disappointment with the patch and all the stuff we've already just talked about, the biggest thing for me that is putting me off of wanting to continue to create content for this mode is the bots. It's just, I feel kind of insulted as a player, as a creator, someone who's put a bunch of time and money into supporting the mode, that it's been, I uploaded the first video about the botting problem in March. So we're closing in on 8-9 months of it being a problem. And I said in that very first video, this is a problem of their own creation because they changed the ladder system and they did it in a rushed way that left it very exploitable. People found out how to exploit it and they're going to take advantage of it. And if Blizzard doesn't do something about this, it's going to fester and spread and more people are going to do it. And 8-9 months later, having made like 4-5 different botting videos covering the topic along the way, even some bigger YouTubers and content creators have mentioned it as well. And they do nothing. They continue to do nothing. And now there are more bots than ever. And it's only continuing to get worse. And they just do not care. They really do not care. The last time I played PvP was on Halloween. I played for about 2 hours, a little bit over 2 hours, and I'll probably upload those games at some point. But in those 2 hours of playing Mercenaries, not only were the queues long, but I think the whole night I played 4 or 5 different opponents at most. One of those was a bot. That bot was almost half my games. And like, it's not fun. Like, it's just not fun. I don't want to play against a bot that I don't even care if I'm winning. It's just, that's not why I'm playing the game. I want to play against a person. It's a PvP mode, or that's the PvP part of the mode. I want to play against another person. That's the point. And the bots have actually gotten to the point where a few of them actually cycle through a number of decks because they got tired of getting hard countered. Like, that's how much it's like advanced.
They're evolving.
Yeah, they're evolving. They're gonna terminate us. But it's just like, and they aren't even hiding it. It's so easy for us to find who these bots are, and we have that reporting system in game now that hasn't done anything. And anytime you try and contact them about it, they're like, oh, well, it's our policy to not say anything about cheating because it helps the cheaters. Well, you know what else helps the cheaters? Not doing anything about it for 9 months and having them notice, hey, we could just do this. And they don't do anything about it. And like, that's the biggest thing, like, not just disappointment with the patch. It's the combination of them messing up what should have been a easy and key win for the mode to bring people back in and like be good for the players who have stuck with it for so long, and not dealing with the huge problems of botting and balance. And I could even take or leave balance at this point, even though I think it's really important, if they just dealt with the damn bots. But they aren't. And I don't really see any signs that they're going to be changing course on that, sadly.
Yeah, what if Blizzard is just trapping the bots in Mercenaries, and the plan is to just destroy them all? We just happen to get caught in the mix. We were the honeypot for the bots.
Yeah, no, I saw someone had a theory where maybe Blizzard's running the bots because they need people to play against because it's not populated enough.
Because people keep just less and less of this mode. I mean, this month I think there's only like 1,000 people that have played for PvP.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now.
It's insane.
It's
pulling it up.
definitely gone down.
In the world or in NA?
Let me look. It's so in America it's 4,000.
Okay. Yeah,
Let me
4,000
see.
in America. Europe is
Asia's
at
only 1,000 right now.
that's pretty
Oh.
standard
Asia
for
Pacific.
Asia. Europe is at 9,600.
Yeah. So
So
Europe's double America.
it's about what it's usually been.
Yeah.
Honestly, these aren't like crazy different numbers, but
I thought America was normally a little higher. Wasn't it like 6, 7?
it's
Or am I
also
just
we're also only
remembering?
halfway through the month. It usually goes up a
Yeah,
little
I
bit
guess
by
it's
the end
true.
of the month, but when we look at so it's less bad on EU. It looks like there are less bots right now on EU, but the number one player is a bot, Jerry. They're at 64,000 about, but there's so many. Like the whole top 10 pretty much is bots. Board King's all the way down at number 12. They've lost their throne.
Wow.
And it's just sad to see that people who care about the mode and want at least a smidge of competitive integrity and just like climbing a ladder that's in the game without having to do outsource tournaments, which they're very few, which we've done like the majority of on the show and on Twitch and stuff. It's just like you got to throw the people a bone, and they aren't doing anything about it. And this is kind of what I was afraid what was going to happen. I've seen it as a long-term Hearthstone player with Wild. They did the same stuff in Wild, where they just let cheating go on for way too long with animation cheating, and then eventually the only reason it got fixed was because they nerfed the card that was enabling it. But we've seen it before where the animation cheating came back later. It started with Snip Snap Warlock, where people were cheating with that, going faster so they could get kills you wouldn't normally be able to get. Then it was APM Mage with Sorcerer's Apprentice. They killed Sorcerer's Apprentice, so the deck went away. People stopped cheating. Eventually, they're going to do it again. They're going to make a deck that is prone to cheating, and instead of actually fix the problem, or even just ban the cheaters abusing it, they very rarely take action. And when they did, there are a lot of legitimate players caught in the crossfire because they just killed a whole deck to deal with cheating. And they're not ever going to do that in Mercenaries. Like, it's not really an option. You can't fix the botting problem in Mercenaries by nerfing a card. You have to actually change the ladder system, and they just don't seem to be willing or able to do that, despite, we remember Frankie on the show a long time ago, and he contacted people at Blizzard like, hey, this is a big problem, and you guys can fix this. Like, it worked. Your launch system wasn't perfect, but it was not enabling this cheating. And they just don't care about cheating in Hearthstone. Like, it's always been kind of apparent to me. They added that little report system in that does literally nothing. They use the whole, well, we don't want to help the cheaters by talking about we're helping the cheaters by talking about how we're dealing with them, and it's just not. It doesn't seem true. I don't like. I get the idea, but it's not true.
I think it's definitely just the classic kind of like, when you're huge, like, theft is an incredibly minor percentage of your worries, and like, you're just not incentivized to care. Like, it's the classic, like, companies just don't care if you steal from them because they have insurance for it, and they would rather just deal with it a different way. And in a certain sense, I think that is just being seen replicated here to a certain extent. And the cheaters, like, the bots probably stand out to us in Mercenaries because there's just such a minimum of players probably that they just reveal themselves because they sift up through the like already thin layer of player base. I think, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's just some kind of an exploit that Blizzard can literally never resolve in any meaningful way. They will always let in some amount, and it just like shows itself in a small pool more than ever.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's just crazy because the system wasn't abusable like this at launch, and then they made one change to it. Yeah, there was some stuff like people doing some win trading type stuff, but that could happen in any format. But the ladder system itself is just fundamentally broken, where it is abusable by these bots playing all the time. And it's so easy. Like, you can literally just filter it. Hey, who's playing 24 hours a day? Who's playing? like they're not even trying to hide it because they know they don't have to hide it. and it's just like they don't care to deal with it. And like I think another reason is that, you know, it's good for their statistics. It like they would lose users on paper by banning these bots. And
And
when
Twitter bans a wave of bots and follower counts drop like all
yeah,
over the
exactly.
place.
And monthly active users are a very important metric for games like this. So it's kind of like they have more to lose than they have to gain by getting rid of these bots, it seems sometimes. And like maybe that's an overly cynical take, but I just don't know. I don't know what else to do. Like people, we've done everything we can to make them aware of the issue, and they just are unwilling or unable to deal with it. And when that's resulting in more people quitting the game, when it's resulting in a worse player experience for your players who are still playing the game, it's just kind of killing the PvP aspect of the mode, which is what we all kind of fell in love with and saw long-term potential in. And it's just incredibly sad because I can't tell you how many people who have told me, hey, like, what you said very much represents kind of how I feel about the update and about the mode at this point. I just don't know if it's worth my time or my money or both anymore. It feels like they're not. It feels like this is being run by a person out of their garage, not a $70 billion company. Like it does not have that. I mean, I know Blizzard has, you know, they've been on a decline for a while, and there've been a lot of departures and all this other stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are still some great people who work there, and people who I think are great on the team, who are, I have no doubt, are passionate about the mode. Like I really enjoyed working with Alkali. I think Deck Tech's really great with the communication stuff. Like I know they're good people and passionate people there, but whoever's in charge of making the decisions for things like this, they're not willing to do right by the mode, and not willing to do what needs to be done for it to thrive and succeed. And like I feel like I have a good metric for this because I can see it in the numbers. Like I've been doing this for a year. I can take a look at where things were at launch, where things were along the way, where things are now, and you can like directly compare things. And you would think with this update that should be bringing people back, people have been wanting forever, getting new people to start, you'd think more people would be coming in, but the numbers are just down tremendously. It's like it feels like we are reaching everyone we can reach for this mode. New people are very seldom coming in, and when they do, they're not making up for the people who are leaving because they're fed up with it. And
especially not when there's a new Pokemon game coming out.
Oh yeah. We'll probably talk about this a little bit at the end. A very popular, thriving new game, Marvel Snap. Boom. Like it's kind of a perfect storm of people just want their time and their money and all that stuff just respected. And Mercenaries has never been good about respecting either of those things, really. I mean, it is good in the free-to-play sense that you can do it all for free if you're willing to put in the time. But, I mean, who's willing to put in the time to grind it all out if PvP's your, end game when these botting problems and these ladder problems and these queue times, and it's all tied together. It's all related to one another. And literally the biggest thing for me, the bots. They need to do something with the bots because I just don't have the desire to sit in a queue for 2 to sometimes 5 minutes and then face a bot. And it's just like I just want to press the escape button, close Hearthstone, and go do something else when that happens.
Yeah, because it's always more fun to play against other people when you're having to make your decisions. So if these bots a lot of the time too, once you've played them like once or twice with this deck, okay, they're most likely going to do this, this, this. It's like you predict how the gameplay also is going to go.
Yeah, it's very linear. You know exactly what they're going to do. And even when they switch decks, it doesn't matter. Like they're not complex bots. They're just doing the same stuff over and over again. And, they'll get farmed by good players, and then they'll fall down to a bracket where they can beat people, and then they'll eventually come back up. That's why sometimes you don't see them. You'll run into a bot for a while, then you won't see it. It's because eventually they're getting farmed, and you can see this in like the matchmaking history. And then eventually their MMR tanks enough internally where they face lower skilled players or newer players, and then they get more MMR and they climb their way back up because they're always on the top of the leaderboard because they just play nonstop. They not a human running the bot. They just press go and it goes, sometimes for over 2 or 3 weeks at a time without stopping.
Yeah, so I mean that is the problem. It's just it keeps happening, and it's like you said, it's been what 9 months almost
Mm-hmm.
of a problem. So just without any interference from or Blizzard just helping out on it, it's just it keeps going, and there's nothing you can really do about it too.
And it just makes
So
more people do it because they think, oh,
yeah,
I can't get punished for this. These people haven't gotten punished for this, and it's been better part of a year. Well, they're not going to punish me. And
What are they ultimately farming, anyways? Like
no,
packs,
it's just
experience,
it's
like
just coins and experience
tavern
essentially.
yeah,
pass
Yeah, you would
experience.
level up your tavern pass
leaderboard.
so
Yeah. Okay. Tavern pass. Yeah.
it can give you resources for the main game, and
Mhm.
it also will eventually essentially max out your mercenaries collection because you're getting reward coins after every game. So I mean, they probably are sitting on piles of renown that are bigger than any player in the game if they ever even press the convert button. Um, so it's just like, and
Yeah,
then
no renown.
they
True.
can use that in the end game or whatever if it's useful there. And it's just it's a terrible thing, and it's the biggest thing ruining the PvP for me. And I just don't see a long-term future for this mode in the PvP aspect if they can't get this under control. I still love the community stuff. I love the pauper events we've done, like the community tournaments, the drafts, all that. It's some of my favorite stuff ever about the mode. And even though I'm scaling back mercenaries content and all the stuff because of what's going on, I still want to do stuff like that once in a blue moon. I still want to do a draft on the weekend or whatever. But it's also really hard to ask people to keep up with the mode to participate in that, because I know even some of our players who have been long-term engaged with the community, engaged with the mode, have even said, this is just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and I don't feel, why am I gonna spend all this time to level up these characters if the ladder system's not going to get fixed? Because unfortunately, you still do have to farm up all the characters and get them maxed out and stuff if you want to do these community tournaments and stuff. So it's just like we've always had a dedicated group of people, and I think we're even losing some of those people, which is just it's incredibly sad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Blizzard also somewhat sees that it's going down because I've also noticed, at least for the shop, like the weekly thing,
Mm-hmm.
their bundles, they've also increased the value of them too. Like, so it'll
Yeah,
be
they kind
same
of have,
price, but
right?
yeah, they've been adding more things to it. Like the standard, like random legendary merc bundle for like $10 and you get 10 packs. They also now added a epic to
Yeah,
it, a
that's
random
much
epic.
better than it used to be. So I think that's a good
Mhm,
theory. Like because I'll tell you what, I have not spent a dime on Hearthstone in I think over 2 months. Um,
mhm,
I just stopped. Even before I was like not happy with the game, I just kind of stopped. I got a skin for every merc. That's what I wanted. So I
Mhm.
just kind of stopped. And once I finally hopped off that kind of treadmill, it kind of broke the the sunk cost fallacy of like, oh, I've already spent so much money and I spent all this time in it so I can justify it, where I'm just like, you know, I don't really feel like giving this company any of my money because I don't really like the direction they're going. I don't want to reward them for going in a direction I think is not good by supporting it with money. So I haven't spent a dime on Hearthstone, and I was someone who I would buy, the expansion pre-orders. I would buy quite a good amount of the random legendary skin thing for mercenaries. I liked having the skins. I still love the cosmetics in the mode, but I'm just like, I'm done. They pushed me to my limit, and when I'm this unsatisfied with the direction they're taking, I don't really feel good supporting that. So we'll just kind of do that to things that I think are more deserving.
mhm. I mean, hopefully, if there is some response on that, maybe they try and put more effort into it down the line. But I think, as we've seen for this first year and as of to right now, I don't think they put nearly as much effort as they should have. I mean,
No,
like
yeah. Not at
I would
all.
say the main positive would be like the task. The task line
Yeah,
from the
that was great.
start to finish. Every time they change something on the task line, I don't think I ever had any negatives about it. So like
Yeah,
that was one thing I just always loved on it. But as of right now, I mean, even we saw like still in the shop though, even though they're offering like that one bundle, they still have been offering the same bundle since day one of like the $30. Here's one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
starting legendary mercenaries and skin stuff, which is just so pricey. Just think about that for like basically one character and then like a skin on them and then a couple packs, you know. But
Yeah, it's just kind of baffling. Also, we got the Rattle Gore event. Rather focus on some like other stuff before we close it out. But the Rattle Gore event kind of cool. The Merc probably doesn't seem very great for PvP, but could be like a cool PvE thing. The event itself was kind of fun. It's still ongoing, I think, for another week. It's one of the longer events they've done. So get it done if you haven't. But also, no legendary this time, so no diamond skin. That's a little sad. First time we've seen a non-legendary event since Chi-Ji in the very beginning. So that's it's kind of weird. Some people theorize, well, legendary coins are worth more now because of the conversion, so they're not going to always do a
Can't just give
legendary.
those away.
Yeah, so I don't know
For free?
if there's any truth to that or not. It could be, couldn't be, whatever. But I do think it's a bummer that they kind of got us used to the fact that the events were always legendary, and it gave people a way to get these diamond portraits that were very hard to get for especially free to play players. So kind of sad to see that they're not just doing that for the events. But don't want it to all be negative stuff. I want to kind of close it out with our favorite things. You know, we've had a year
Yes.
of this podcast. I want to talk about the things we enjoyed, the road along the way, like what were our kind of favorite moments we've had here, because there've been a lot of neat ones, and I know I've really enjoyed getting to talk about this mode, and it's crazy the amount of community we've built up around it. There's so many people in the Discord, so many people tuning into
That was
the
really
episodes every week, people turning out for the tournaments. It's just, it really has, it's just, it's grown so much more than I ever expected it to grow. Like, I know people who've done other shows and stuff like that. I never really expected this kind of long form talky content to really take off like it did, and it's very kind of humbling, and we appreciate everyone who's been along with us for the ride.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's been great having everyone join in on everything, and yeah, it's just been a fun time doing the whole podcast for the first season.
So our favorite things, though, because we have one of obviously our favorite. So then let's start with that, right?
Mhm.
One of our favorite things is the community. What was
Easily
one of our favorite? Like when you think of your favorite community thing that happened essentially over the last year, what are the ones that kind of come to mind for you guys? Or like if you had to pick one or one in an honorable mention or something.
Um, I can start out.
Yeah, go for it.
My So I would love for like the Discord and like overall everything that we had together, like for the Fighting Pit podcast. I'd say for that, as in like our group, for me was
Mhm.
the reveal. I felt like that was
Mhm.
amazing to be able to
That
have
was
that and do that live reveal and everything. That was so much fun. So I
Yeah,
was really happy that we all got to do that. Like that was just enjoyable moment, like, you know, that Blizzard's like, hey, you know, you guys have been doing good and everything, here's a reveal. Like that was really cool just to have that.
yeah,
the cherry on top. Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
felt nice to get some acknowledgement there.
mhm. And then yeah, for like personal level, I would say in Mercenaries for me though would be really always had fun participating in all the tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I did like 4 or 5, and I got
That's
3 of
true.
them.
Yeah,
I
you
got
were
second
throwing down most of them.
places,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I never got a first yet, but always got up there. So it was always just a lot of fun, you know, especially in those tournaments versus playing on ladder of all the different micro decisions that you'd be making on building your team and the rules versus, hey, maybe I had a sideboard on some of these tournaments and, you know, figuring out like exactly what the opponent's going to do, because it's always a lot more fun when you have to really plan out and see all these different wacky plays that you wouldn't actually expect on ladder.
mm-hmm.
So it was just so much fun to, you know, play with the community in those tournaments, and they were always just a blast.
Definitely agree on that. What about you, Mullahoo? What were some of your favorite things?
Ooh, I mean, I really enjoyed the first two major tournaments that I was a part of in
Hmm.
particular. So like the world's first tournament was really fun, and like to start everything was super exciting, especially from like a casting perspective. So that was really fun. But honestly, the fact that the Pauper tournament in relationship to all the other tournaments that had happened and how cool it was, and like just getting that kind of doing our first kind of podcast tournament, having this cool new rule set, kind of really exploring in a space like that with the community, with something that was kind of, I mean, how much more grassroots can you get than like a Pauper type of
Hmm.
tournament in that kind of way? And it was, yeah, it was just so cool to see that tournament be so sweet and
Hmm.
showcase parts of the game that were not even remotely thought about yet, I feel like, so early on.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so cool. So the first tournament thing you're talking about was actually how I found out about you and contacted you about
That's
doing the show, because I saw you, and I think Tankster was participating in that one
yeah,
as
I think it
well.
was.
And you guys both just I could tell you had a lot of passion for the mode, and you saw something similar that I did in terms of the potential. And I was just like, screw it. Like, I'll reach out, and we'll see if we can get something going here. And I certainly never expected,
Lo and behold.
we'd get a official reveal, and we would have all these people watching and be doing it for a year. And it's just kind of crazy. So the community events are like, the original one is what started this show, and
Oh,
then
that's awesome.
much like you said, the first Pauper tournament, that's also like a key part of show lore here, because that's really a big way we got introduced to WizardBeast
Hmm,
taking
hmm,
part in the
hmm.
tournament, who eventually became, one of our main hosts. And
True.
it's so cool. And the stories, that's kind of my favorite part. Is I feel like every one of these tournaments has had just a ride. Like they're so fun to go back and look at.
Yep.
And they never the I thought the viewership on Twitch was always pretty good. The super long form content like that has never done super well on YouTube, and it's true, in even bigger Hearthstone stuff, where it's only a small percentage of the player base that's really interested in that like hardcore competitive mindset kind of stuff. But that never bothered me, because I knew the people that were interested in it really appreciated that it was a thing.
Hmm.
Because I mean, we were some of those people ourselves, and I just loved, like, there were such great stories of people making it through the losers bracket and having to win all these games and to get into the grand finals and having to get the bracket reset. And they were just, I feel like every major tournament there was just like so much interesting story stuff going on. Like, it was such a ride, and it was so much fun casting. I've never casted
Hmm.
before we did our community tournaments, and I found I something I absolutely love to
Yeah,
do. Like,
that's so fun.
it's really fun being on the casting bench and kind of talking about possible plays and the outcome and kind of crafting the narrative. And it's just something I never would have expected to try myself, or thought I had like any skill at. But like, I really feel like I enjoy it a lot, and it has been
Yeah, you did
received
great.
really well. And so it's just been great. And that's by far my favorite thing about the show, has just been the community events and just the community in general. There's like no way in how I would have had the drive to continue this project for as long as we have, without the community kind of being a big reason for kind of pushing me forward, wanting to make the best community we could make possible for this mode. That feel like it kind of got, a rough start, but we saw all this big potential. And just I stand by that. I think generally the mercenaries community is like the best community in Hearthstone. Just people are very welcoming and friendly. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I've had to ban someone in chat over a year. Like, like
That's awesome.
it's just like people are very respectful and just enjoy the game, enjoy talking with each other about it. And that can be kind of rare in hard game scenes sometimes. Sometimes you see a lot of toxicity, and it doesn't really matter about the game. It's just like a thing that pops up, and that's really something I haven't seen a lot of in the mercenaries community. And I'm really really kind of happy about that, and something that definitely made me feel good about doing it for the mode. You know, it's a tight-knit community. I relate a lot to the Wild community, which even though I don't play as much Wild as I used to, I'm still very involved with that community. And I just see a lot of parallels there where it's just, you know, it's smaller, but because it's smaller, it's a lot stronger, and people kind of are very in touch with one another and all that stuff. So I'm probably going to still do the occasional mercenary event thing. I don't really have a plan or any of that stuff right now, but you know, once in a blue moon, maybe we'll still see some drafts on the weekend. The bigger stuff, like we've done with the tournament stuff for the show, that required a lot more work. So who knows about that stuff in the future, because it's kind of hard to do a tournament for a show that's not currently airing. But I do still love the community events, and I do want to try and keep them going at least a little bit once in a blue moon, just over on stream if people are still interested. But by far, favorite thing about it is just the community events and the community in general. Definitely would not have made it a full year without everyone's really just humbling support.
And I mean, the community is like you keep saying is what made this podcast and everything, and allowed us to do these amazing events. And it's just been so much fun, you know, creating them, playing in them, and just having great discussions with the community. I mean, we even had, you know, developers come in and do chats in your streams and stuff too. So it's
Yeah, and that
always
was
great to
great.
like talk about that.
No, it was so cool to get to interact with you know, we always said the mode needed more communication. It was really cool that at certain points we were getting it, even if it was just from, you know, one or two lone people on the team. You know, that really meant a lot to the community. It felt like we were being heard a bit more, and obviously just getting that acknowledgement, getting to do the reveal, it's a huge highlight. It definitely feels like you know, we've been putting in all that work for the mode. It's nice to see that it gets kind of recognized, paid off a bit. And it was just exciting. Like, there was so much excitement around the reveal, and it was just a really fun time. So that's definitely something I will always remember very fondly. But yeah, you know, the Discord is still going to be active, still going to be hanging out in there. We are leaving it kind of open-ended. You know, we're calling this a close on season 1. But it's always possible we bring it back for season 2 in the future. You know, maybe the endgame system is better than we're kind of expecting it to be. Maybe eventually they get their stuff, they get their ducks in a row, and they ban the bots, they fix the ladder system. I mean, who knows? I really hope, like, I don't want the mode to fail. I put a lot of time and effort into building a community around it. And so the last thing I want is for it to fail. But I also, doing this as, you know, a job, I have to make the decisions that, you know, make sense for me to be able to keep doing it as a job. And unfortunately, with the current direction of the mode and what we're seeing in terms of players leaving, viewer retention, all that kind of stuff, it's just not trending in a direction that is sustainable in the long term. And maybe they turn it around, but unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of waiting another year to find out. It's just not sustainable, as much as it makes me sad to see it. And it's crazy because I was going through, you know, my launch stuff, and those Mercenaries views in the beginning were kind of nuts. Even when people were like upset with the mode and leaving the mode, like, those launch videos are still some of my most viewed videos ever. It's crazy how much interest there was in this mode and how heavily the launch soured people on it. And you still see it today, even, you know, complaints about the new stuff aside, people are just still burned from that initial launch. Like, they really burned a lot of the bigger player base, and they haven't really found a way to recover from that. Like, you go into a Twitch chat and you say Mercenaries and you count the amount of omega lols in the chat. And it's like, it's sad because, you know, a lot of us really enjoy it and care about it and saw the long-term potential. But like we did a whole episode on potential only carries you so far. You have to realize that potential because you can only coast off of, how great it could be for so long before people start to realize, well, you're not really getting to what it could be. And so those are really like the big thoughts overall. I do want to mention we're leaving the door open. Maybe in the future we can pop back. Maybe if we're lucky, for some reason they give us another card reveal, though I'm certainly not expecting it with some of the things I've had to say about the recent update. But who knows what the future holds. We have talked about it though, and I really enjoy getting to talk strategy and card game and all that kind of stuff with Mullahoo and WizardBeast here, and so we did want to keep that going a bit, but it just doesn't seem sustainable right now in Mercenaries. So we do have an idea for a new project, and nothing's really set in stone here. But if you watched our last episode, you saw we talked quite a bit about a new emerging entity in the card game strategy scene, which is Marvel Snap. And again, nothing set in stone here, but thinking about maybe doing not a weekly show, because weekly shows are a ton of work. I definitely warn people, if you're going to get into a podcast and be committed to it, you definitely got to learn what to expect, because I love doing it, but oh man, weekly shows are a lot of work. But we're thinking about doing basically kind of another kind of show only once a month, because I think that format lends itself well to a game like Snap, where the seasons are a month long, so you can kind of cover all the stuff in a season rather than week-to-week news. But we're all pretty passionate about the game. If you haven't seen, I'm changing my direction a lot in terms of focusing on the game, because I played it in beta and I liked it in beta, but now that everyone has a chance to play it and seeing the community that's evolving, and it reminds me of Mercenaries in a lot of ways, because it's a really cool community, and part of what makes me love playing the game is just talking about it with people. Like, it really reminds me of Mercenaries, like just discussing all the plays and the deck ideas, and like my favorite thing. And it's just been so fun to do that, both with you two as well as other members in the community. I know you guys have been really liking the game as well, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of, keep the spirit of what we were doing here alive, even if the contents that's focused on is slightly different, even if it's not going to be, a show every week anymore. I thought it'd be nice to kind of do that. And hopefully, I know not everyone is going to be interested in the new thing, and that's totally okay. It's not going to appeal to everybody, but I do know there have been a pretty large amount of people who I've known in the Mercenaries community who have been playing it and just been having a great time. A bunch of the people who actually left Mercenaries along the way due to the issues, even some people who are still playing it now. Just a lot of people have been having fun with the mode or the game, and I think there's just so much to talk about that I think it'll be great to have just like a once a month kind of roundup, thoughts on the game, news, all the stuff we've been doing here.
Other stuff, yeah. Hearthstone stuff, probably Magic stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, it's not necessarily limited to one thing. Like, we can. That's the great thing about doing a once a month show, is like we can kind of make it a bit more open ended. It doesn't have to be a Marvel Snap show. It can be whatever we want it to be. We can focus on that. We can focus on something else. I'm glad you mentioned Pokemon, because at the time we're recording this, it's the night before Pokemon release. That's another game I'm going to be covering a ton of. And if you like Mercenaries PvP at all, please check out Pokemon PvP. I really like it. It's what they're they were trying to simplify and get to the Hearthstone audience is Pokemon PvP.
I've heard the word Smogon mentioned to me so many times recently, because everyone keeps saying like, no, for real, I think you would actually unironically really like this new Pokemon game. And I was like, all right, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. No, there's potential. So like, I think it'll be great. Again, it's just kind of an idea at this point, but I'm sure we'll post more about it in the Discord once we have some ideas and a more concrete vision of what we're trying to do. but I definitely plan on talking about a bunch of Snap stuff. But I really like the idea of it being more open ended. Just a more general kind of gaming podcast. Maybe a bit more focused on what we focused on here with like strategy type games and card games and that kind of stuff. But it'd be great. I mean, so many times before we start the show, we're talking about Hearthstone or Magic or recently Snap, and it'd be cool to share that with everyone because I know a lot of our viewers and listeners are interested in that stuff as well.
Yeah, it'd just be great to have, open end for anyone who wants to listen. And kind of as we were saying, just cover maybe a couple topics on it. So then, every episode would be a little bit different, kind of just go to news on, what's kind of currently out there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I almost forgot, and if I'll just squeeze this in here. There was one piece of news I wanted to mention. We don't have to dive into it because we're kind of wrapping up here. But kind of interesting news that came out recently. So if you don't know, in China, Blizzard is they have to have a kind of a partner, and the partner was NetEase, and they basically go through them to publish all their games out there, and kind of a very strict requirement in China. And they announced recently they're parting ways as of like late January next year. Blizzard games are not currently going to be playable in China, which is kind of wild because a lot of people suspected with the launch of Mercenaries they were trying to appeal to that Eastern audience a bit more because these type of games are popular over there. And so it's interesting to see that, that doesn't mean Blizzard games are going to be gone there forever. It's possible to get a new partner. And I'm no expert at this at all, but everything I've been reading about it sounds like even if they get a new partner, the amount of legal stuff and all this stuff they have to go through, especially as China is cracking down on video games pretty hard, it sounds like it could be like at least a year before they actually get a new partner and are able to get their games going. And that's kind of crazy for Hearthstone. I mean, it's a huge Chinese player base. Like, I think there have been times where Wild in China has had like over 100,000 people in Legend or something crazy. Like, it's nuts how like tons of people play over there. Also Overwatch 2, that's another big one that just launched recently. So the fact that all these people who enjoy these games over in China might not be able to access them anymore as soon as 2 months from now, and who knows when or if they're coming back. That's kind of crazy. I kind of forgot about it earlier on, but I did want to mention that because that's some of the biggest news we've seen about Blizzard in quite some time since all the lawsuit stuff, and definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, now thinking about it, I actually don't even think it would be anytime soon, as you were saying, maybe even longer than a year, because everything that's happening with Microsoft, I doubt that they're going to want a huge new deal with a partner and everything right before a transfer.
Yeah, it would have to be after that deal goes through, if it goes through, so that can make it even longer. And it's definitely a lot of complicated legalese type of stuff. But did want to mention that, and it's just it's a rough time, I think, to be a Mercenaries. And for me, it feels like even just like a Hearthstone fan in general. I know the Death Knight stuff looks cool, and I'll probably try it out and whatnot. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not buying any of those expansion pre-order stuff. Don't really like the new signature frame card stuff. I don't like the direction they've been going with nerfing stuff so often, and just the general game, even outside of Mercenaries, as someone who's played it for like 8 years, it's pretty low for me right now, which is kind of sad to say. But maybe eventually they get things together. Maybe we've had people say before, maybe Microsoft will save the day. Who knows? And I certainly hope so. I genuinely hope that they can do what needs to be done to kind of turn this ship around, because it just doesn't look good right now. And gonna focus on doing this content, doing a podcast, doing all that stuff. I want to do something that has a future. Because otherwise, what's the point if you're just doing something that is slowly bleeding out? So I really like the idea of a general card game strategy kind of gaming podcast thing. It wouldn't be weekly, probably monthly, But I hope everyone who's enjoyed the show definitely gives it a shot, because I think we have a lot of stuff to say. I really enjoy the conversations we have, and getting the differences of opinion, because I know we all have kind of different viewpoints and see things kind of differently, and I think it's great getting to kind of explore that, because it gives you kind of a different set of eyes to look at it, where you might not see that perspective when you're thinking about something. I know I felt that way about a ton about Mercenaries, and I'm sure we're gonna probably see similar stuff like that in future topics we cover. But
Definitely.
I think that's going to wrap it up. Do you guys have any final words you want to say here before we sign off?
Yeah, I just again want to thank the community and everyone who's, followed through the path of all of the events we've done, joining in the Discord, talking there, Twitter. Just it's been great doing this, and really enjoyed it. And I just hope we'll kind of see maybe improvement to Mercenaries, and as we were saying, this isn't a close for it, but it's end of season 1, and we'll kind of leave it open and just see how Mercenaries goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, just from Leaf to Tankster and everybody in between. I mean, there are just too many names and systems and decks and ideas and archetypes and movements that kind of played out throughout this last year to count and to name. But I mean, just shout outs to everybody, and well, definitely, I mean, I think this is the full circle of, like we said, season 1, but I think there's probably more to come. Like I said, we're gonna, this won't be the last time you see us, so it's only goodbye for now.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a ride. Could do it all without you. Stay tuned to the Discord and potentially the Twitter, unless that site implodes. But definitely the Discord, which link in the description if you want to hop into the Discord. But stay tuned there for future announcements. We consider this kind of a close on season 1, our 1-year anniversary. It's been a great ride. Really looking forward to what the future holds, whether that is, them eventually fixing Mercenaries, bringing people back, or just, branching out into some other stuff. You'll definitely be hearing more of us in the future, and I sincerely hope they take the steps they need to take to make a season 2 of the Fighting Pit really something, a project worth doing, and bringing people back and all that stuff, because it's a great community. Really not a thing I would change about the community for the world. And I hope Blizzard eventually does right by our great community here. But that's good. That's gonna preach. That's gonna wrap it up for this one. Definitely, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the mode, about the episode, about the future in the comments below. Read all those, and they're always really nice to see. But that's gonna wrap it up for episode 36, the 1-year anniversary, and the closing of season 1 of the Fighting Pit podcast. Stay tuned in the Discord for more information on future projects and potentially season 2. And until then, we will see you next time.
See everyone. Stay safe.